Have you ever wondered why the gods of ancient Greece behave so much like us, falling in love, making war, seeking revenge, yearning for power? Is it mere fantasy, or is it a symbolic map of human consciousness itself? In a forgotten age, when the veil between the mortal and the divine was thinner, the ancient Greeks crafted stories so vivid and rich they became eternal. Yet these myths were never meant to be just stories. They were encoded teachings, esoteric blueprints for understanding the cosmos, the soul, and the hidden forces that shape our lives. Behind the thunderbolts of Zeus, the wisdom of Athena, and the underworld journeys of Hades lies a deeper truth, a language of symbols that speaks to the deepest parts of who we are. Greek mythology is not just the relic of a bygone civilization. It is a living library of archetypal wisdom. These myths mirror our own struggles, inner conflicts, divine potentials, and shadow selves. They reveal, in metaphorical form, the eternal battle between light and darkness, the chaos of the untamed soul, and the disciplined path to spiritual awakening. In this video, we will lift the veil and journey into the sacred terrain of Greek mythology, not as scholars, but as seekers. We will not merely recount the tales of heroes and gods, but decipher their hidden messages. What does the chaos of the Titans reveal about the primal energies within us? What does the descent of Persephone into the underworld teach us about transformation and rebirth? Why does the trickster Hermes hold the key to alchemy and higher states of consciousness? Prepare to explore mythology as a mystic roadmap, one that bridges the ancient with the eternal, the mythic with the personal, and the divine with the human. We will traverse the symbolic architecture of the Greek pantheon, uncover philosophical truths encoded in allegory, and discover how these timeless stories still speak to us today, guiding us, warning us, and ultimately calling us home to the divine spark within. Long before science dissected the stars and psychology mapped the mind, ancient Greece stood as a beacon of mystical understanding, where philosophy was not merely intellectual pursuit but sacred inquiry. In this world, myth and philosophy were not separate domains. They were interwoven threads of the same divine tapestry. To the ancient Greeks, myths were not fiction. They were coded truths, preserved in poetry and symbol, pointing toward a reality beyond the visible. It was in the heart of this enigmatic culture that figures like Orpheus, Pythagoras, Plato, and Heraclitus walked the earth, not merely as thinkers, but as initiates. They viewed the cosmos as a living organism, governed by divine laws and spiritual forces. They taught that beneath the chaos of mortal life lay a harmonious order, a logos, the divine intelligence that speaks through myth, number, music, and form. Plato himself, a bridge between myth and metaphysics, famously said that myths are lies that tell the truth. He did not mean lies in the sense of deception, but rather veiled language, a symbolic code through which profound realities could be conveyed to the uninitiated. In his works like the Republic and the Timaeus, Plato used myth to convey truths about the soul, reincarnation, and the architecture of the universe. He believed the soul descended from the realm of perfect forms, and that through purification and wisdom, it could return to the divine. The pre-Socratic philosophers saw the pantheon of gods not as literal beings residing on Mount Olympus, but as archetypal forces, expressions of the universal energies within and around us. For example, Heraclitus, the weeping philosopher, saw the world as a dance of opposites, governed by fire and flux, concepts echoed in the unpredictable storms of Zeus and the transformative descent of Dionysus. Even the Orphic mysteries, which predated and deeply influenced classical mythology, taught that the human soul was divine in origin, imprisoned in matter, and destined to return to the stars through cycles of purification. These mysteries were not mere rituals, they were spiritual initiations aimed at awakening the soul to its divine heritage. In these rites, mythic figures like Orpheus and Persephone weren't just characters. They were guides on the soul's journey through life, death, and rebirth. The myths of Greece were repositories of ancient initiation, encoded wisdom, and cosmic allegory. When Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind, he wasn't just gifting physical flame, he was igniting consciousness itself, bestowing upon humanity the divine spark of reason and awareness. When Aphrodite emerged from the sea foam, she didn't just symbolize beauty. She represented the birth of harmony and attraction from the chaotic depths of unconsciousness. This is why the Greek myths endure. They do not age because they do not merely entertain. They reveal, they challenge, they awaken, they point toward universal truths that transcend time and culture, truths about who we are, where we come from, and where we are destined to return. As we move forward, we will begin to decode these myths in greater detail, peeling back the poetic layers to expose the metaphysical heart. We will begin with the Titans and the Olympians, the cosmic forces that shape creation itself, and explore what they tell us about the structure of the soul, the birth of ego, and the eternal dance between chaos and order. In the beginning, there was only chaos, an infinite void, a primordial womb that held all potential but no form. From this darkness emerged Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, foundational symbols of matter and spirit. Their union birthed the Titans, mighty, formless forces that represent the raw energies of existence, untamed, vast, and pre-conscious. But why did the Greeks begin their mythology with chaos, titanic power, and eventual rebellion? Because they weren't just telling stories about gods and monsters. They were telling the story of you, your mind, your emotions, your soul's journey from the unconscious to the awakened. The Titans are not merely deities. They are archetypes of the primal urges that rule our inner world before self-awareness dawns. Cronus, the Titan of time, devours his children, symbolizing how time consumes all things in the physical world, including the innocence of our beginnings. Oceanus, the ever-flowing river, speaks to the boundless unconscious, the ocean of feelings before we learn to name them. Rhea, the mother of gods, reflects the nourishing but also cyclical nature of existence, birth, decay, and rebirth. But something extraordinary happens in this mythic drama, the rise of the Olympians. Led by Zeus, the sky god who wields thunder and logic, the Olympians overthrow the Titans and establish a new order. This moment mirrors the human transition from unconscious instinct to conscious awareness, from the storm of primal emotion to the clarity of thought, intention, and higher will. Zeus is not just a sky father. He represents the principle of mind over matter, law over chaos. His thunderbolt is the flash of divine insight, the piercing wisdom that brings order from the storm. The Olympians, each with their domain, Athena with wisdom, Apollo with light and harmony, Artemis with instinct and protection, and Dionysus with ecstasy and transformation, are fragments of the complete human psyche. They are psychological and spiritual aspects of our own being, personified in divine form. Take Athena, born fully grown and armored from the head of Zeus. She is not just a goddess of wisdom, she is the intuitive intelligence that emerges when brute force gives way to reflection. Her birth tells us that true wisdom is not learned through external experience alone, but arises from deep, inner realization, a flash of insight, a warrior's clarity. Or consider Hades, lord of the underworld, not evil, as modern interpretations often suggest, but the guardian of hidden truth. His realm is not hell, it is the subconscious. It is the shadowed realm we must enter to face our fears, confront our traumas, and integrate what we have denied. Persephone's abduction and eventual return from the underworld is not merely a seasonal myth, it is the symbolic cycle of descent and return, death and rebirth, necessary for personal transformation. Each myth, each god, is a mirror. When you read of the passionate rage of Ares, the love-laced schemes of Aphrodite, or the silent wisdom of Hestia, you are reading chapters of your own inner scripture. The pantheon of Olympus is the inner parliament of the soul, and understanding their interplay is to understand the forces that govern human behavior, both in the mundane and the mystical. Even the divine conflicts, like the jealousy of Hera or the cunning of Hermes, are not flaws, but aspects of duality within ourselves. The Greeks did not present perfect gods. They presented whole ones, embodying both light and shadow, virtue and vice, because only through the integration of opposites can we achieve true spiritual completeness. And this, ultimately, is the first key to understanding Greek mythology as a mystical system. It is not a map of the heavens above, but of the heavens within. The myths are living metaphors, timeless truths whispered through symbol and story, waiting to be decoded. Beyond the thrones of Olympus and the primordial battles of Titans lies a more intimate, more perilous journey, the soul's descent into the unknown. It is here that Greek mythology sheds its grand cosmic attire and slips into the psyche of the individual. This is where heroes are born, not of divine blood, but of divine struggle. Their myths are not tales of adventure alone. They are encoded rituals of transformation, maps of the soul's alchemical process. Consider the Labyrinth, the winding prison of the Minotaur, hidden beneath the palace of King Minos. At first glance, it's a tale of a beast and a brave young hero, Theseus. But beneath the surface, it's a myth of self-confrontation. The labyrinth is not a place, it is the mind. A maze of conflicting desires, traumas, illusions, and unconscious drives. The Minotaur, half man, half beast, represents the shadow self, the part of us that is born when we suppress truth, passion, and pain. Theseus does not destroy a monster. He slays the unintegrated self. His weapon is not brute force, but the thread of Ariadne, symbolizing conscious awareness, a spiritual lifeline that guides us back from the depths of confusion. Without awareness, we are lost in the labyrinth. With it, we reclaim sovereignty over our own inner kingdom. Now let us turn to Heracles, the great hero who performed 12 impossible labors. His story is often told as a saga of strength and glory. Yet each labor is an esoteric teaching. Slaying the Nemean lion is not about physical combat, it is about conquering the beast of pride, whose hide cannot be pierced by ordinary weapons. Only by strangling it, cutting off its breath, its pneuma, can it be defeated. And what is breath, in ancient symbolism? The spirit. To transcend egoic pride, we must go beyond mere action. We must face the lion within and silence it. The cleaning of the Augean stables, clogged with years of filth, may seem mundane. Yet it is perhaps the most profound labor. For it is the cleansing of accumulated karma, the inner pollution of lifetimes of unconscious choices. Heracles uses not a broom, but divine ingenuity, rerouting the rivers themselves. It teaches us that true purification comes not through struggle, but through aligning with the flow of higher principles, divine water, the element of renewal. And then there is Dionysus, the mad god, the liberator, the destroyer of boundaries. He does not fit into rational categories. His followers dance, drink, and tear through social norms in ecstatic frenzy. Yet to the mystic, Dionysus is not chaos. He is sacred madness, the intoxication of divine union. The tearing apart of the self is not destruction, but revelation. His madness is not to be feared, but embraced, for only when the ego dissolves can the divine self emerge. In the Eleusinian mysteries, those ancient rites shrouded in silence and secrecy, initiates walked in the footsteps of Persephone, Demeter, and Dionysus. They symbolically died, descended into darkness, and returned reborn. These were not mere performances. They were spiritual technologies, inducing profound shifts in consciousness. To die before you die, the mystics said, is to awaken. What all these myths share is a central teaching. The soul must journey through darkness, chaos, and trial to reclaim its divine nature. There is no shortcut. No god saves the hero without cost. Each step must be earned. Each demon faced. Each illusion shattered. Yet the promise is clear. At the heart of every myth lies a sacred seed, a truth that, if understood, transforms the seeker into the sage, the hero into the god, the mortal into the eternal. Now that we have unearthed the symbolic depths of these myths, the question arises, how can we live them? How can we apply their wisdom to our daily existence, our spiritual practice, our inner evolution? The myths of ancient Greece are not relics sealed in marble, they are living scriptures carved into the very architecture of your soul. These sacred stories were not meant to be read once and set aside. They were meant to be lived, invoked, embodied. The ancients did not just admire Heracles or Dionysus, they became them through ritual, meditation, and intentional transformation. You too can walk this path, not in sandals, but in spirit. So how do we bring these myths down from the stars and into the bloodstream of daily life? First, recognize the archetypes within you. The gods are not out there, on Olympus. They are within you, as latent forces. When you feel sudden insight strike like lightning, you are touching Zeus. When a deep inner knowing guides your step, Athena walks with you. When your heart breaks open in wild ecstasy or chaotic grief, Dionysus is rising. Learn to identify these energies. Meditate on them. Dialogue with them in your journal. Ask, which god is active in me right now? Which goddess is calling to be seen, expressed, honored? Second, embrace the labyrinth. Most of us try to avoid confusion, conflict, and emotional chaos. But as Theseus taught, you cannot slay the Minotaur without entering the maze. Begin to see your challenges not as curses, but initiations. When life becomes tangled, ask, what shadow am I avoiding? What forgotten truth waits in this darkness? Use breathwork, dream journaling, or inner visualization to trace the threads of your own psyche. Let Ariadne's thread, your intention and attention, guide you through. Third, ritualize the myth. The ancient Greeks had sacred festivals, temple rites, and initiation ceremonies. You can bring this into your own life in subtle but powerful ways. Light a candle for Hestia when you seek peace at home. Pour a libation to Demeter when you are nurturing others. Create your own symbolic rituals. Write a letter to your shadow before a full moon and burn it, invoking Persephone's descent. Use physical symbols to anchor the metaphysical. Coins, stones, herbs, incense, or statues can serve as sacred tools for daily connection. Fourth, train like Heracles. The 12 labors weren't about strength, they were about soul refinement. Make your own list of inner labors. Perhaps forgiveness of a long-held wound, mastery over anger, release of toxic patterns, cultivation of discipline. Choose one and commit to it for a lunar cycle. Journal your process. Reflect on which mythical labor it mirrors. In doing so, you reclaim heroic power, not externally, but internally. Fifth, welcome divine madness. In a world ruled by logic, routine, and superficial order, allow space for Dionysian wisdom. Dance without choreography, laugh without reason, cry without shame, create without purpose. This is not chaos, it is sacred wildness. It is the part of you that remembers ecstasy as not indulgence, but transcendence. Let yourself be unmade to be remade. And finally, meditate on mythic symbols. Close your eyes, visualize the thunderbolt of Zeus, and feel it clear your mind. See the olive tree of Athena and ask her for wisdom. Enter the dark cave of Hades and ask what must die in you to be reborn. These are not mere visualizations, they are portals. With consistent practice, they can shift your consciousness and awaken ancient knowing within. But beware, the gods do not grant gifts freely. They require honesty, devotion, and sacrifice, not of animals, but of illusions. Each step toward inner Olympus demands the shedding of something false. A belief, a mask, a fear, but what you gain in return is immeasurable, authentic power, spiritual clarity, and the felt sense that you are not merely human, but a divine being wrapped in mortal skin. The myths live in you. Now, live them. And so, we return from the sacred heights of Mount Olympus and the shadowed depths of the underworld, not merely with tales, but with tools. The myths of ancient Greece were never just about entertainment. They were coded messages, spiritual blueprints, timeless reflections of the journey each soul must take, from ignorance to illumination, from chaos to cosmos, from mortal to divine. You are not separate from the gods, you are their echo, their mirror, their unfinished song. Every challenge you face is a labor. Every dream you chase is a quest. Every part of you, light and shadow, joy and sorrow, is a note in the symphony of the soul. Zeus's thunder still rumbles in the insights that strike your mind. Athena's wisdom whispers through your intuition. Dionysus dances in your wildest moments of inspiration. These are not just stories of the past, they are reminders that the divine is not above, but within. If this exploration has stirred something ancient in you, a memory, a longing, a flame, you are not alone. That stirring is your call to the mythic life. To awaken, to remember, to walk your path with the courage of Heracles, the insight of Theseus, and the ecstasy of Dionysus. We invite you to carry this wisdom forward, not as mere knowledge, but as living truth. Apply it, embody it, share it, let it ripple outward, awakening others from their slumber. If this journey into the mysteries of Greek mythology touched your heart, opened your mind, or sparked your spirit, then help us continue to share this light with the world. Like this video, share it with fellow seekers, and subscribe to our channel for more profound explorations into ancient teachings and spiritual wisdom. Thank you for walking this sacred path with us. Until next time, may the gods guide you, the myths inspire you, and the soul within you rise to meet the divine. Thank you for watching.